Lily Mercer always traveled alone, not because she had to, but because she liked it that way. As a freelance photographer specializing in nature and remote travel, Lily's life was a long series of cabins, campsites, and strange little towns, each one bleeding into the next. Oregon's Ivor Valley was supposed to be routine. Hike, shoot, upload, done. The area wasn't even on major maps, just a strip of green between ridges. It wasn't dangerous. At worst, it was remote. She drove. Up in early October, golden leaves clinging to life, fog dragging low across the hills. The place was stunning in a haunted kind of way, pine trees too tall, rivers too quiet. She rented a single-room forest cabin just off the trail system. No Wi-Fi, patchy cell signal, one gas generator, one fireplace, perfect. The ranger station was closed, but an older man named Dale lived in a trailer nearby and acted as caretaker. He handed her the keys and glanced at her gear. "You do this often?" he asked. "Couple dozen times a year," Lily said, smiling. Dale hesitated. "Stay on the trails. GPS acts funny here. It's not a place you want to get turned around in." "I'll be careful." He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. He just nodded and shut the trailer door behind him. The first day was uneventful. Lily set out before sunrise, walking the main trail with her camera bag and a thermos of tea. The woods were beautiful, dense evergreens swallowing the light, moss, spreading like velvet across every fallen log. She took photos of the first light piercing the trees, mushrooms clustered at the base of a birch, a broken deer's skull resting in the leaves. Around noon, she reached a clearing where sunlight fell like a golden spill over the mossy rocks. That's when she saw it, off to the left. Behind a veil of vines and fallen branches was a path, narrow, twisting, unmarked. It wasn't on her paper map. It didn't look fresh, but it curved gently, like it wanted to be followed. Her curiosity flared. She took one cautious step off the main trail, brushing aside a drooping fir branch. The moment she stepped onto the path, something changed. The air got colder, not sharp or sudden, just wrong. The woods were quieter here, still, too still. She took a few more steps, snapping a few photos of the way the trees pressed in above, forming a crooked tunnel of branches. But within minutes, she noticed something strange. Her compass app kept spinning, and the camera refused to focus, and her phone lost signal entirely. She turned to go back and froze. The entrance was gone, replaced with dense brush and uniform trees. No break, no trail. Her throat tightened. She turned in a slow circle. Everything looked the same. The path she'd followed no longer existed. She wasn't panicking yet. She'd been in worse situations. She took a breath, dropped a rock from her pocket as a marker, and walked back the way she thought she came. 10 minutes passed. No trail. No clearing, no marker. She began to hear things. Rustling too steady to be animals. A faint whispering that shifted direction every time she turned. She called out, "Hello?" The forest swallowed her voice. Not even an echo. That's when the light began to change. The sunlight, already dim, began fading unnaturally fast, like dusk was being dragged forward by invisible hands. Long shadows curled across the path like spilled ink. She picked up her pace, trying not to run. But it was impossible to ignore the sensation something was behind her. Not walking, gliding, Keeping pace, she forced herself not to look back, just keep moving. Focus on the rhythm of her boots, her heartbeat. Then she saw it, a strip of yellow trail tape tied to a sapling. She surged forward. More tape appeared, this time flapping in the wind she couldn't feel. She spotted a broken tree branch, then a water bottle she'd clipped to her backpack, now lying on the ground. She was close. She ran. The underbrush tore at her legs, her breath sharp in her lungs, and then sunlight. She burst out into the main trail, staggering, her legs trembling. Beneath her, the silence broke with a gust of wind. Birds chirped, distant crows called. The real forest returned like a dream interrupted. She looked behind her. The place she'd come from was just trees. No path, no shadows, just forest. It was over. She made it back to the cabin by evening, expecting relief, but the caretaker was waiting outside, arms crossed, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "You're back," he said. "Of course I'm back." She panted, "You've been gone a day and a half. I was about to call the search team." Lily stared at him. "No, I left this morning." He showed her the cabin's guest sign-in log. She'd checked out over 28 hours ago. Somehow, she'd lost an entire day, and yet her body didn't feel it. No dehydration, no injuries. She was exhausted, yes, but not in pain, just rattled. Dale didn't ask more questions. Neither did she. Weeks later, Lily sat in her apartment back in Seattle, sorting through the photo card from her Ivor Valley shoot. All of her trail photos were intact, except the ones she took after leaving the main path. They were gone, except one. It was the last file in the folder. A single blurry image, taken from what looked like the forest floor. Maybe she dropped the camera by accident, but in the corner, barely visible, stood something tall, white, limbless, its face a blank, gray smear, half hidden behind a tree, watching. She closed the laptop and never looked at the file again. But she was okay. She recovered. Her sleep returned. She went back to work. Starting with a project in Arizona 2 months later, she took precautions, double-checked maps, and never again. Followed unmarked trails. She told no one what she saw because she wasn't sure what she had seen. But she survived, and in this line of work, that was more than most could say. Friday afternoons at Crestwood High were usually noisy, messy, and impatient. Mr. Lang's history classroom, 2B sat, waiting for the bell, half awake, half scrolling through their phones under their desks. No one expected anything different, not even Julian Marks, who had a perfect record of skipping the last 10 minutes of every Friday to beat the parking lot rush. But today, he stayed. It started at 2:17 p.m. They were mid-discussion about World War II when the intercom crackled. The voice of principle. Ray cut through with unusual urgency. "Staff and students, this is not a drill. Lockdown now. No explanation, just panic." Mr. Lang didn't hesitate. Phones away. Lights off, back corner now. They all followed, no talking. Just the low shuffle of 20 feet scraping tile as the classroom dimmed. The blinds were drawn, the door was locked, and then came the silence. Julian sat pressed against the wall, between two girls who were already shaking. One of them, Megan was whispering prayers. In front of them, Mr. Lang hovered by the door, crouched low. The clock ticked. 5 minutes passed, maybe 10, then a sound. Heavy steps in the hallway, slow, deliberate. Julian held his breath. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Then a hand tried the knob, locked. The breathing on the other side was audible. Then came the knock, soft, measured, 3 times. Someone whispered behind Julian. Why would they knock if this is real? They all froze. The figure outside the door didn't speak. No shouting, no commands, just quiet. Then came something worse, the dragging. It sounded like someone was pulling something metallic along the tile. A screech with each tug. The girl. Beside Julian whimpered. Mr. Lang raised a hand without looking back. Silence returned. 10 more minutes passed, maybe 15. Then came the thud, something hitting a locker. Then another, farther away. A voice finally came through the intercom again. But this time, it wasn't the principal. It wasn't anyone they recognized. Don't be scared, the voice rasped, distorted like it came from an old cassette. I just want one, the entire. Class stiffened. Open the door. You'll all be fine. Mr. Lang's hand slipped into his pocket, probably texting the office, or maybe 911. Then from the hallway, laughter, slow, low, not joyful wrong, more dragging, something scraping metal. Again, this time, it passed their door without stopping. No one moved, and then screaming. From another hallway, Julian flinched. The voice was female, panicked, then more footsteps. Running, a crash, then silence again. The intercom sparked again. This isn't a drill. The same raspy voice said, softer this time. Not for you. Megan was quietly crying now, face buried in her knees. Julian placed a hand on her shoulder, unsure what else to do. His own heart felt like it would burst. Suddenly, pounding 3 doors down, then another closer. Mr. Lang slowly moved away from the door, crouched to the floor. He gestured for everyone to stay still. Seconds later, the classroom directly across the hall had its door kicked once. Hard, then another scream, but it was a man's voice, deeper, familiar. Mr. Lang whispered, "That's Coach Diaz." Another crash. Then came the intercom again, this time the principal's. Voice, panting, "Remain in lockdown. Emergency responders are in the building. Do not open your doors under any circumstances." Julian didn't even realize he was crying until a drop hit his hand. 5 minutes later, a pounding came on their door. A loud voice. "Sheriff's Department. If you're in there, speak up." Mr. Lang didn't trust it. "Badge under the door," he said loudly. A moment later, a plastic ID was slid through the crack. Lang opened the door an inch. Outside, 2 armed officers stood in tactical gear. The hallway behind them was lined with more deputies. The hallway was cleared. Bloody footprints led toward the west exit. "We got him," one of the deputies said. "He's in custody. You're safe now." They were escorted out in groups. Julian held Megan's hand the whole way to the gym, where other students sat on the bleachers in shock. Later that night, they learned the full story. The intruder was a former substitute teacher who'd had a breakdown months earlier and been banned from school property. after an incident in the staff parking lot. He'd sneaked in through a rear entrance during a delivery drop. He had no weapon, only a crowbar. He used to break into the faculty lounge and scare the staff. Coach Diaz had confronted him and been struck in the arm. He'd survive the screams? Mostly fear. No fatalities, the voice on the intercom? The intruder had found a way into the main office and hijacked the mic system for a few minutes before being tackled by the responding officers. He was arrested without serious injuries. Crestwood High closed for the following week. Therapy was offered. Cameras were installed. Security tripled. Julian never skipped another Friday again. No one died, but no one forgot. Because even though the sirens had faded and the halls were bright again, everyone remembered the silence between the bells. My name's Evan. I was 18 when this happened, working a summer job delivering pizza in a quiet suburb about 40 minutes from the city. The place was called Tony's Oven, though no one named Tony actually worked there. I think the owners just thought it sounded authentic. The pizza? Barely edible. Rubber cheese, soggy crust, and sauce that tasted like ketchup. Still, a job's a job, and minimum wage was better than nothing. It was a sleepy joint, most nights. I stood behind the counter folding boxes, refilling napkin dispensers, and watching the manager, Steve, scroll on his phone and complain about his ex-wife. He was the kind of guy who wore flip-flops to work and left early if it rained too hard. But he was chill, and I liked that. I was usually the only one doing deliveries, and on slow nights, I didn't mind the long drives just to get out of the fluorescent lights. That night was unusually dead. I had just finished sweeping when the ticket printer spat out a single order, a large mushroom and bacon. Pizza with a note. Back door only, no lights, do not ring. Weird? Yeah, but not unheard of. We got all kinds of requests, people with dogs, babies, or just weird preferences. Steve didn't even look up from his phone when I asked if it was okay to take it. He just mumbled, "Go, you'll be back before 10. So I packed the pie, punched in the address about 25 minutes away, far out into the edge of the county, and hit the road. As I drove, the air grew heavier. You know those summer nights where the humidity feels like it's pressing on your lungs? Like the air itself is too thick to breathe? It was one of those. No music, no traffic, just empty roads lined with trees, and the occasional porch light flickering in the distance. Eventually, I turned onto a gravel road lined with tall hedges and broken fences. The GPS announced I had arrived, but the house looked abandoned. No lights, no cars. The only indication that someone lived there was the overgrown backyard with a cracked plastic swing, swaying gently in the breeze. I parked on the gravel shoulder and checked the ticket again. Park in the back. No lights. Do not ring back. Door only. I grabbed the pizza and stepped into the yard, flashlight in hand, keeping it low to avoid shining it at any windows. The grass brushed against my calves, damp with dew. The smell of wet earth and old wood hit me, rotting fence posts and moldy leaves. The back door came into view, Faded white paint, rust on the hinges, and a narrow window at the top, covered by a stained curtain. I knocked twice, softly. Nothing. I waited. Knocked again, still nothing. Then I swear, I saw the curtain twitch, just slightly like someone brushing it aside. I leaned in, squinting, trying to see who was inside. Nothing. I took a step back, my skin prickling. The air felt raw thick, with something I couldn't name. That's when headlights washed over the yard from behind me. 2 cars, unmarked, quiet, one parked behind mine. Blocking the exit, my heart jumped. A man stepped out of the first car plain clothes, but holding something out in front of him. A badge. "Hey, you the delivery guy?" He called, voice low but firm. "Yeah." He walked over, keeping his eyes on the house. "Back to your car. Stay put. Do not knock again." I didn't argue. From the window of my car, I watched as 4 more figures emerged, flashlights in hand, fanning out silently around the yard. No sirens, no announcements, just quiet movement, like they'd done this 100 times. One of them approached the back door, my door, and tested the handle. Locked, he motioned to another officer, who nodded and slipped around the side of the house. The man who had spoken to me crouched beside my open window. "You got the order ticket?" I handed it to him. He skimmed it, frowning. "Name," says Brandon. "Does that mean anything to you?" I shook my head. "Nope. I just go where the tablet tells me." He nodded slowly and looked back at the house. "This property's under surveillance. You weren't supposed to be here, but your timing, well, let's just say it helped." I didn't know what to say. My heart was still hammering from the adrenaline. Was someone actually inside? I asked. His eyes narrowed. "Yeah, not someone we wanted answering the door. What did I almost walk into?" He didn't answer that, just gave me a tight-lipped smile. "Go home and delete this address from your GPS." I left the pizza on the seat and drove off without another word. I didn't even care about the gas reimbursement. Back at the store, Steve was still watching TikToks, feet on the counter. "Dude, what took so long?" I stared at him and just said, "You owe me a raise," and walked into the back. I never found out what was going on at that house. The number the customer used was disconnected when I checked it later. The address didn't show up again in our delivery system. No news stories, no police reports. It was like it never happened. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night and I think about that twitch of the curtain, I wonder what would have happened if those unmarked cars had pulled up just a few minutes later. And I know, deep down, that pizza saved me